campus as he led off with his opening statement going into the 2024 season.
Anticipated game week, and we get right after it with a great opponent in USC. Excited about the matchup. Certainly Sunday, Las Vegas, and a game that will be seen on ABC in prime time. So just a great showcase for college football, LSU in particular, and certainly for all that follow college football should be a great matchup. We're excited about the football team that we have going into the season. Every year is a new team, and certainly we lost some great playmakers last year. But again, every team across the country has lost great playmakers, and probably some of the similarities are, USC and LSU lost Heisman Trophy winners at quarterback. And so now it's time to talk about the guys that we do have. And, we're excited about, some of the leadership that we have. As many of you know, recent news, Josh Williams and Greg Penn were awarded the number 18. They exemplify, the kind of other-centeredness, thinking about team first. That's emblematic of 18, being a great teammate, overcoming adversity. And number 7 will be worn by Will Campbell. Of course, he's an offensive lineman. He can't actually wear 7, but he'll have a patch that will show that. And then Harold Perkins on defense. And again, what does 7 represent to us? A great history and tradition with both of these numbers, 18 and 7. And 7, much more about a player that has roots in the state of Louisiana, and certainly can bring up the play of all those around him. Certainly individually is a great player, but is more than that. Somebody that, again, from my perspective, can electrify all those around him, and both of these guys certainly do that. So I wanted to make sure that we gave proper notice to those guys.
Brian Kelly opening statement to the 2024 college football season for LSU yesterday as his team will travel to Las Vegas coming up this weekend to take on USC. Here's the injury update on what they're looking like on their travel.
From an injury standpoint, we have one guy that is questionable, and that's Chris Hilton. He has a bone bruise. He is working through that process, but today he'll be listed in that category. Probable is would be Frazier, our offensive guard. Those are the two right now that would show up on our injury report relative to this week.
This has been the story that has plagued Chris Hilton throughout his career. You hate to see him go into the year with a nagging injury that has him questionable for the opening game. And, look, I think everybody's pulling for Chris Hilton. Chris Hilton has paid his dues. He has waited his time, and it feels like it's now. And you have seen glimpses of what Chris Hilton could be if he's on the field consistently. You've just not seen Hilton on the field consistently. That's just not been the case for him. Seen him in high school. Zachary, he was a standout. What he feels like at this point, and just with all due respect, I love Chris Hilton. I'm pulling for him. I know if he gets on the field, he's going to make plays. I mean, he is a playmaker. He's finding it tough to get on the field. He feels like a track guy that's trying to play football, where it was, kind of thought coming out of spring, early fall camp, what he looked like physically, and, him being out there a lot of those days was kind of trending the discussion that he may be a a football player now. It kind of feels like he's a football guy, and I don't want to label him that just yet because the season hasn't even started, and he might play on Saturday. But him being the only name, along with Miles Frazier, where I feel like Frazier's going to play. I mean, him being a probable status on Tuesday of game week feels like, come by Sunday, he should be ready to go. The real question felt like it was around Hilton. And, I hate to see Hilton enter the season on that note, on, kind of that tone. I'm pulling for him. I hope he can get healthy. This has just been the typical story of Chris Hilton. It's nothing big, major. It's always just kind of nagging stuff that's keeping him off. Yeah, keeping him off the field.
The narrative around like track guys, it's like you always feel like they have to be 100%. Like even when I covered track at Northwestern State, like that was always like they're so caution, like they err more towards the side of caution than anything. Because like if I'm not 100%, I'm probably not going to win, so I don't go. And Chris Hilton, it feels like he's been trying to shed this narrative of him being like a track guy, especially going into this year. He's like, I don't want to be just a one-trick pony. I want to show that I'm a wide receiver. This is the real narrative around him, though. It's like you just can't stay on the field. But what do you put the chances of him going?
I mean,
because it's not like a questionable, really. It's a more feels like we're going to get to probable than not.
I think he's going to travel.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily trust Chris Hilton playing with injury. It feels like if he's got something that's hurting him, he's not going to play. And I'm not saying that that's right, wrong, or indifferent because it's all up to the player. It just, hey, man, the best thing you got is availability. The best ability you have is availability, and Chris Hilton has just been limited on that since he's been at LSU. And I think that the big benefactor on this is going to be Kyle Parker. I think Parker is going to have the first opportunity up to see who's going to make their way out of that clutter of names that is a talented group, whether it's Parker, Shelton Sampson, Aaron Anderson. You've got some freshmen in there.
Xavion
Thomas, who's a proven player at the SEC level. I mean, you've got names in that group that could emerge as another guy for LSU as a consistent pass catcher. And, the first one out of the pack feels like it's going to be Kyle Parker. Parker, who is a redshirt freshman, speedy guy, really is kind of known for his work ethic, always really kind of, next man up mentality. As soon as he gets his opportunity, he will be ready. And here it is. Going into his second year at LSU, he feels like he's going to have the chance. If Hilton cannot go, Kyle Parker is going to be the first one who's going to have his opportunity to see if he can hammer down to be a guy that can stay on the field. C.J. Daniels is going to be out there. Kyron Lacey is going to be out there. Chris Hilton is scheduled to be out there if he can go, but if he can't, look for Kyle Parker's reps to really, see a jump up here. Here is Brian Kelly previewing this game from LSU's head coach's point of view. Here's how he sees Sunday night.
Looking again at some of the things that we need to do against a great team like this. Certainly it's been a prolific offense. Lincoln Riley is an outstanding football coach. His pedigree in terms of winning at Oklahoma and again at USC has been through the offense. And we've got to do a great job, obviously, in making them, one-dimensional. They are, if they are balanced offensively, they are very difficult to defend. We've got to limit some of the big plays. Certainly, Zachariah Branch is an electrifying offensive player. We've got to be able to tackle him, not only offensively, but in special teams. And then obviously prepare for a defense that we're not really certain about because they have so many new players on defense. We know the structure. We know that, from a defensive standpoint, they bring in a lot of talented players. Bear Alexander, Ramsey. A lot of these guys are coming in as heralded transfers that certainly will impact our defense. Coach Lynn coming over from UCLA did a great job, and he will impact that defense as well. So, we've got our hands full, but, again, from our perspective, we'll be who we are from an offensive standpoint. Try to be as balanced as we can on offense. Defensively, we've got to be able to, as I mentioned, tackle in space, do a great job of stopping the run and prevent some of the big plays. A lot of kind of the same things that you hear week in and week out when coaches talk about what they need to do to win football games. So that's a little bit about LSU and USC and Sunday. I'll open it up to questions.
One of these things that we've talked about here early on in the offseason and going into week one that is a concern around LSU is the punt team, is the punt game, and it is going to be tested here in the opening weekend versus USC. I mean, Zachariah Branch, he could be the most dangerous punt returner in the country. And for LSU, who's trying to figure out who their punter is, if they can do it consistently, I mean, the plan would be, if you had somebody that you trusted, would to be kick the ball away from Branch. Like, don't even give him an opportunity to impact the game from that standpoint. But where LSU is, they just want to functionally punt it. They want to get one off. Good hang time, get the ball down the field. Yeah, whatever happens down there, I mean, it's kind of like, at this point, gravy. But for a team who's got question marks around the punt team, the first thing you don't want to see is Zachariah Branch. And he's going to be back there all day on Sunday. So I think it's a huge test off the top here for where LSU is on this punting situation. Maybe it's not as bad as we think it is. Maybe it is. Maybe, it's something that is just kind of what it's been reported, just really inconsistent. But whatever it is, week one, we're going to find out. Because they might have the most dangerous playmaker in college football back there.
Well, they definitely will have one of the most dangerous playmakers back there. It's just a matter of how LSU wants to approach it. From what you've seen and what you've heard, you would just hope that you can get the snap off, get the catch, get the punt, and then hopefully force a fair catch. But because that's what LSU did well last year. There was not many returns that ever happened, but obviously you changed the position. But you just don't want to give.
They punted 7. Did they punt 9 times?
I think 24 times all year. Yeah. And they had 7 returned.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what you would. So that's what you've been kind of come to expect. But now, from what you've seen, it's a little bit different. But if LSU can just get it off and force a fair catch, even if it's not 50 yards, if you can get it to 35 yards, I think you would take that, because you don't want to set up any sort of opportunity to flip the field whenever you still don't know what your defense is.
Yeah. No, it's it's going to be some stress.
Yes.
Some stress on
You'll see a lot of shifting
LSU.
In the seat.
Yeah, I mean, it's you got the punt team kind of trying to set up the defense is going to be worrisome for sure.
Well, and you've seen Brian Kelly, whenever he does have you saw it his first year, whenever obviously special teams cost you a game, then you saw them start going for it a little bit more often. I'm wondering if you'll see early on LSU do that, where it's, if we get it to the middle of the field, do they decide, hey, 4th and 4, let's go for it, instead of.
Yeah, no, I think you'll definitely, with this offensive line, with a veteran quarterback, with the running backs
that you trust,
that they have and trust, I definitely see LSU lining up on some 4th down situations and taking some chances this year.
I'd love to see a Nussmeier quick kick.
Definitely, or just the creativity of what you could do with something like
to hide it,
that offensive line and a veteran quarterback. I mean, I think LSU is, and knowing the defense and the potentially whatever happens with the punter. knowing that exists. All right, more from BK. Here he is talking about Lincoln Riley going up against Riley and some of the new advancements on campus for LSU.
So, first of all, from an offensive standpoint, Lincoln runs an air raid offense, so it is predicated on, attacking, playing fast. It's an offense that certainly has been prolific in the time that he has run it. I think they were, top 5 in the country in terms of passing offense, and certainly, with Caleb Williams running that offense, it was elite. But again, that's what you're looking at, an air raid offense that has its basic premise and obviously pushing the tempo. Look, if they can spread you out and they can get numbers, they're going to run the football as well. So this is not just throw it all over the place. This is about, if they can get fair numbers and run the football, they'd like to do that too. But it's predicated on an air raid, offense. The Recovery Center is part of putting together in the Football Operations Center a high-performance center that starts when you walk in with our Performance Nutrition Center. And then on the back end of it is the recovery end. And you can't be high performance without all of those things. You have to have nutrition. You have to have strength and conditioning. You have to have the ability to teach. You have to have the ability to spend time with your players. And then certainly the recovery piece, the rehab piece, the diagnostic piece is all there. Everything is now in that operations center that allows you to have an elite program. And this is kind of that finishing piece that I wanted to present to our media, so you saw what a high-performance center looks like.
Talk to Wilson coming up here at 8:15 this morning about his experience over inside the Performance Center yesterday. And, just obviously seeing some of the videos, some of the images, and having a chance to go in there a couple of weeks ago and see it up close. It's revolutionary, new age college football stuff, man. LSU has, is definitely one of the Joneses, and they have to keep up. And this facility really puts them in a good place for the next 3 to 5 years as far as that recovery aspect and angle to college sports goes. It's got all the bells and whistles. It's got all the cool lighting. It's got all the cool windows and the views and all of kind of what goes into these facilities, but it also has the science behind it of, having all of the recovery methods, the sleep chambers, the whirlpools, the steams, the saunas, all of this stuff, the cold plunges, all of what goes into all of this is now accessible for LSU athletes just inside of their own facility. It's right there at their fingertips. So
it's got light therapy, hydrotherapy, float tanks, a barbershop, ping pong, air hockey, podcast studio, etc.
It's got it all.
Don't let me in there once.
Right.
Still here.
You get lost. But brand building, NIL, ability to podcast, ability to get things out from a branding standpoint. It's much more than football, right? And I think from what LSU's trying to sell, there's not anything that anyone can offer around the country that you can say is better, maybe as good, and I'm sure maybe some more bells and whistles, but when the grand scheme of it is diagnosed and talked about, LSU is in the top 1% as far as college football resources, as far as college football facilities, as far as college football budgets are concerned. So you spare no cost of winning, and this is a great example of that. We'll talk to Wilson a little bit more about it when he comes through here at 8:15 this morning, because he was a part of the media team that was over there yesterday taking in of that tour. Here is more on Kelly talking about the status of his team heading into the season and just where they are, more on the injuries.
No, there's nobody that has been practicing with us that would be excluded for something other than an injury.
And I will say that this is something under Brian Kelly, Jake Flint, and the staff, the training staff, obviously the medical staff over there, that, you knock on wood. I mean, for the most part, LSU over the last 3 years under Kelly has been a fairly healthy team. I mean, they've had their share of injuries for sure, but I mean, for the most part, LSU has stayed as healthy in a 2-year plus stretch that I can recall in covering them. I mean, it's been pretty impressive in the way that they have taken care of, the soft tendon injuries that was really plaguing LSU for a while there, that they couldn't seem to get away from, is now, really seemingly mastered. I mean, like they have the ability to train these guys and get them healthy for the season, and for the most part, they really do stay available. So, again, shout out to the weight staff, to the strength staff, to the medical staff, and obviously the plan in place by Coach Brian Kelly, because it's obviously proven and it works.
Well, not only like from the health perspective, but from like a discipline perspective, where you don't have anybody out because of any off the field or in-house kind of punishment, it feels like. So that, I would imagine that means Javian Teviano is going to travel. And I don't know what that means about Trey Holly, but if he would have named him, I would imagine, if they weren't able to dress or travel. And it's a far cry from what Ed Orgeron in 2017, when he had 13 players not show up for BYU.
Yeah. Look, Holly's not a part of the team. I mean, he can't be. I mean, they still haven't ruled on his legal status. So, I mean, I don't think that he's going to make a statement whether or not he's traveling. He can't travel with the team. He's not a part of the team.
Okay.
But Taviano is.
Yeah.
I mean, and I expect Toviano to be dressed out and available. And, I think, and look, I don't want to get into the legal on this, but, one of the things, Rob Boudreaux brings up a good point. Not only has the health issues seemingly been cornered, but also basically everything else too seemingly has been cleaned up. And I don't think that LSU by any means was running a renegade program. But when Kelly got here, there were some things over the football program and over the university that was clouding a lot of stuff, right? Whether it was legal issues with the former head coach, legal issues with a former recruiting analyst, legal issues with a former player. I mean, there were all types of things that were just circulating around LSU at the time that Kelly took over control. And, we give the example of where their health is from a football standpoint, seeing, really and truly where they are just overall is leaps and bounds from where they were when he took over. So I think, there's definitely that part of the job that we may not talk about for, what Kelly has accomplished here early on. But I think when you just kind of, you spell it out, you put it down on paper, it's easy to see that, things have really been organized, disciplined, and put in place for LSU football as far as, just policies, procedures, protocols, and processes, of being able to take care of themselves health-wise and understanding what the responsibility of being a part of the team is. It's